Hey, welcome back to Restless, the podcast. This is Steve. You know, it's been a few weeks since we've been here, and we had our last story with, they call him Coach, which was really, really good. And tonight we have even another story that we want you to be a part of and hear. But first, if you got a story, and here's the thing, you do have a story, and they're all unique, and they're all special, and they're all been given to you like fingerprints. They're all different. So we would love to hear it. And that's the special gift given to you to share with other people, to perhaps even bless them. If you're up for that, get up with us by contacting us at info@restlesspodcast.com. Better yet, go to our website, restlesspodcast.com, and go to Tell Your Story and leave us some information. We would love to hear from you. Tonight we have someone uniquely special. And Luke, could you tell us about Kurt?
So our guest tonight is Kurt. And Kurt grew up in Central Maryland, and as a young man bound for college, in fact at Hopkins School to be a mechanical engineer, he suddenly lost his dad, and then 3 years later lost his mom as a sophomore at college. And it completely altered the trajectory of his life. And Kurt is here to tell us about what he did after that happened and what needed to change after that traumatic event.
And Luke, you know, as we all think about this and how the role of parents are in our lives and the uniqueness of how that is set up in the family unit, and when one is lost is one thing, but when they both are lost at a young age, that impacts us for a lot of years to come. And Kurt, you know, if you wouldn't mind just starting out, tell us a little bit about yourself and how that story began for you, whether that's as a young man beginning high school and then moving on to college. What was it like?
Pretty ordinary. I mean, to start off, I had a very normal, average, I mean, looking back at it, great life growing up. Parents were fine. You know, I got spanked and hollered at and everything like normal kids, and I just grew up average middle class, or at least as near as I know it. And, you know, went into high school, started playing sports, did fairly well, did decent in school. And, you know, going into my junior year, coming out of my junior year, my dad was sick. He was sick a lot. And he'd be home on the sofa a lot. And, you know, testing and all that kind of thing. That was a little while ago. It took a while, and they eventually found out that he had cancer. And then right before my senior year, he passed away. So we went into football, you know, senior year. I mean, it wasn't the one good thing about playing football was two things. You know, one, we were there before everybody else, so I felt comfortable in school. You know, I'd already been there, been around everybody for 2-3 weeks, so I felt comfortable with school. Wasn't too worried about the whispering and, you know, did you hear this, all that kind of thing. So that part was good. And the other thing was, you know, if you get a little angry or whatnot, it's a place to let it out a little bit, you know. So that was good. And went through my senior year, did decent. Had a good friend that I played football with, and we both got accepted to Hopkins. And we went down there and played football. So we're excited about that, kept that going.
So you got accepted in Hopkins under like a sports scholarship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's Division III, so it wasn't, you know, it was more embellished financial aid than it was scholarship, but, you know, so they took me in.
That's great.
And, yeah, so played football down there. I was a mechanical engineering student. I mean, basically your general classes, your basic classes. I did okay. After my freshman year, I did construction with a friend, building a home, building his father's home. And, you know, grunt labor. And then back into football. It was the easiest football double sessions I ever had because I'd been digging footers and wheelbarrow and rock and all that kind of thing. So that was fairly easy. And so went through the season, spring semester. We had a row house down in Baltimore just outside of the campus, and got a phone call that there was an accident, had to get up to Harford County somewhere. And I do remember, so we're sitting in the hospital, nobody can tell me anything. And I can remember the officers were at the other end of the hall, the great big long hall. And, so it was me, my friend from high school, and another fella that I played football with. So we're sitting down there pacing, and there's these two police officers at the other end of the hall back there pacing. And, knew things weren't good. You knew something bad was going on. So finally they, I really feel bad for those guys looking back. I'm sure it's not the funnest that, they had plenty of other things they could be or rather be doing that night. But so they eventually came down and told me that she had passed away and all that kind of thing. So, so there we are in the hospital. We're like, I'm sobbing a little bit and trying to, kind of get my wits together. And, the two guys with me were trying to, like help, but, what do you do? So, so after that, we just, we packed up, went to my mother's parents, my grandparents' house. And I told them, and, then the guys went home. Grandparents said they'd take it from here. I mean, they were pretty incredible troopers, really. And went over, then we all told my sister, and then went through all the funeral process or whatnot. It's kind of a week of mind, just walking through things, not really, you're doing stuff, but you're not sure what you're doing or why you're doing it or whatnot. So, kind of get through that. And, the whole time, it's, what am I going to do? And there was some, God, why did this happen? Why me? What did I do? What, what, the whole ball of wax. I mean, the steps of grief and all that sort of thing. I think Luke mentioned, so my sister was still in high school. We had the house, the insurance from my father and decisions my mother made or whatnot. The house was paid for, but we still had the bills, had to figure out how to live, all that sort of thing. And the friend that I had built his father's home with, he was basically there as, what do you need? What do you want to do? So basically he hired me, or I went to work, or vice versa, flip a coin, call it what you want. But basically I started doing construction and taking on the bills of the house and everything like that. I was able to finish up my semester, my second semester exams, all that kind of thing, finish out my classes, but decided to go to work instead of back to college. And then that's pretty much what I did. I mean, that first year or two was pretty much driven by taking care of my sister, even though she didn't want to be taken care of. But, did the best I could with what I had or whatnot. And
so, Kurt, you left college because you had this, or at least you believe you had this need by which to take care of your sister.
Yep. Only family. I mean, only immediate family. I mean, we had grandparents. My one grandfather had passed away. You know, they were to that age. So as, you know, probably the next 5 or 6 years, my other 2 grandmothers passed away. Then after that, my aunt, a little while after that, my other grandfather. Yeah, I joke that I have a whole half acre over at Lakeview, but
I mean, what were you thinking? I mean, you lost your dad 3 years earlier. This is your mom. You're losing relatives around you. Obviously, there's a moment where you're just in shock and you're mechanically processing all these things and you do what you need to do to get through it. But there comes a time to where you go, oh my gosh. I mean, what's next?
yeah. I mean, and that's kind of where I was. I mean, you know, like I said, that first year or so was driven by some sense of duty, responsibility, that sort of thing. And then basically there was more and more, you know, as grandparents age or whatnot, you're caring for them or helping, not caring for them, but helping with this or that. And, you know, your parents aren't there. They're their kids that would be doing kind of what they're calling on you to do. And then as that kind of went away, it was just, you know, more of a sense of loneliness, sort of. I mean, I would just, but along with that came some self-reliance and whatnot. You know, you've made it this far, you've done this, you can keep moving ahead. The one thing that did start happening, which was kind of masked in, you know, I did a lot of construction. We started off painting, got into remodeling, building, that sort of thing. Originally, we had built that fella's father's home, and construction was a great place to hide your anger, similar to football. You know, you tear stuff up, you're ripping stuff down, you're throwing stuff away, you know, and it's a pretty good place to get rid of anger, frustration, and hide things as well. So, you know, I would have these fits of anger. I mean, I'd be quick to anger. I would, you know, throw stuff, break stuff, you know, outbursts, things like that. But it was construction. They just look at you and say, "Are you done?" Okay. You get back to work and you go on. So, you know, that went on for a while, and that just seemed normal. I mean, it was, you know, nobody else thought anything about it, so I didn't think anything about it. I just, you know, that's the way things were.
Did you realize what was going on at the time?
No.
No.
I mean, it just, you know, I stubbed my toe, so I threw a hammer, or, you know, I mean, the one classic thing that we had was, we had an old van. You know, it was, it was not much, but, it was pretty rough, and we're filling it full of trash. And I'm pulling on something, you know, pile of trash, I'm pulling on something, and something pulls out and hits me or bangs me in the head, something silly, you know. And I get all mad and threw a piece of sheetrock into the van, and there was a broken door that was laying in there, and that piece of drywall just skipped right up, went right between the two seats as perfect as you please, and smashed out the windshield. And it's just like, you know, that's not good.
Yeah.
So that was a troubling, you know, that was a time when I had to be sat down and talked to, that, you know, what's going on? Is everything okay? And, you know, I mean.
And did someone do that?
Yeah. Yep. The guy that I was working for did, but not, you know, now some time had passed. So it wasn't like last week, last month, that sort of thing. This is a couple years down the road. Yeah. So, that kind of thing just festered off and on, you know, over the past or the next 10 years or so.
But you're still in the middle of processing, for most people to have the loss of one parent, say 3 years earlier, it could take years just to process that. I mean, get through that. Yet you have a mom that is tragically taken from you as well. Do you get any kind of counsel, or does anyone speak to you? Hey, Kurt, you need to understand this is significant. And it's going to take a while to get through this.
No. I mean, that was a trial by fire. I mean, that was just, the good thing that I had. So I lost my parents, and the fellow that I was working for, his father and stepmom were there. It was really, looking back, it was really, really a neat and very lucky thing. I had really two sets of parents. The guy I was in college with, his parents, they basically took me in, and so did the fellow I went to work for. His father and stepmother kind of took me in, and it was, I mean, I was very, very lucky. I mean, because basically I could come and go as I please, but they were there to pick me up when I needed it.
But in both cases, none of them were blood relatives.
No, not at all. I mean, basically I was the stray cat that they fed and just stuck around and kept coming back, and they kept feeding.
How about your sister?
My sister, she ended up getting married shortly after high school and had kids, and had a rough time. Still having a rough time. We are somewhat estranged. I mean, I wouldn't say estranged, but we're not close.
Yeah.
She went through a lot of money, did a lot of bad things.
And this is all connected to not having parents.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, and looking back, I wish I could do better for her. But at some point in time, she made her own decisions too. So it's a little hard to wrestle with that one. I mean,
so these two sets of people, your employer and then your friend's parents, are kind of stepping in that role. But the truth is you can't fill that role, right?
No. I mean, and there's a lot going on. I mean, same thing that happens to most 20-year-olds or 25-year-olds or what have you. I'm girls, women, drinking, carrying on. I mean, nothing horrible, nothing, but, stay out too late and get up not feeling that great the next morning. And it's kind of the hallmark of construction. So, felt like I was fitting in, that sort of thing. But eventually, I went to my 10-year reunion after all this, pretty much construction the whole time. And met up with a girl from high school that I had dated one time in high school.
One time.
Yep. And then we started dating. She had a son, and we got married.
And this is 10 years after high school.
10 years after high school, 10-year reunion. And so a year after that, pretty much we were married, expecting our first child, so second child. And along with that, eventually got another job in the construction management. And things were going well, had a family, providing for a family, that sort of thing. But the anger issues still plagued me, and in construction, they just kind of look at you funny and say, okay, get back up here or whatnot, or pick that up or what have you. It's a little different when you have a wife and babies running around the house and you burst into a tirade and throw stuff across the yard or through the kitchen or that sort of thing.
Yeah, let me ask you about that. Now you're in this situation, you're being a dad,
Mm-hmm.
and your dad was taken away from you at a young age. Where are you getting all these dad experiences or this information or this wisdom that would normally come from a parent, or is it just on the run?
Well, I did have pretty good support.
Mm-hmm.
Both the two families that kind of took me in were very helpful,
Even during marriage?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Tried to be as helpful. I mean, we holidays, that sort of thing. It was, when I was going, before I got married, I used to joke about it, that Christmas, I'd get 2 dinners, or, holidays, I could call up and see which one had the best meal, and, I could go there or whatnot. I was pretty lucky. So, and that just continued on. Bringing the kids by and all that sort of thing. It was, kind of like family.
Yeah.
It was, and still close with all those people today. But yeah, the anger issues did persist, and kids, babies, as awesome and pretty as they are, they're frustrating as well. They get sick, they mess, they break things, and, the anger issues would surface. It wasn't beating anybody or anything like that, but, breaking things. And it eventually got to the point where, eventually we had 2 more kids, so we had 4 kids. And they were fairly young, but it got to the point where my wife told me that she thought I should leave. She didn't want us to divorce. She just wanted me to leave. And that's kind of the point where we had, I'm assuming that I had sensed something was wrong. Not only with the marriage, but with me and whatnot. And one of the neighbors, we had very good neighbors where we were living, had gotten me a Bible. I had Bibles, but he got me a Bible that was color coded or whatnot, so easier to read and understand, that sort of thing. And we had talked about that sort of thing. So I was actually trying to read the Bible and all that kind of thing, and I was doing some reading off and on, sometimes heavily and then sometimes not so, and back and forth. And at the same time, we had the kids in Sunday school, that sort of thing. Some of them were involved with the youth group, but never got real comfortable there with the church.
Yeah. And when your parents were alive, did they take you to church?
Yeah. I was brought up Episcopalian.
Mm-hmm.
The Sunday school, the confirmation, the
Mm-hmm.
whole ball of wax, the checking the boxes type of thing.
Checking the boxes.
Did all that sort of thing. And it was, it was fine. It was good.
Yeah.
Had been out of it, we worked hard, played hard, didn't do a whole lot of the church stuff, when I wasn't married.
But as parents, as yourself, you thought this is just the right thing to do. This is what you do.
This is what, exactly.
You check these boxes.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we're going through that. And like I said, it got to the point where, my wife felt that I was scaring her and scaring the kids with some of this anger. And at that point, I do what I normally do. I go out in the woods because I like to hunt, fish, that sort of thing. And, just completely broke down. I'm like, I don't have any family. This is my family. I'm making a family, and now
You're losing it.
I've screwed that up.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a lot of the whole ball of wax, the whole gamut of why me? Why are you doing this to me? What did I do? What did I, all that kind of bargaining and
With God.
yeah, horse trading and all this kind of stuff. If I do this or you let me get back in there, all of it. The whole, but just in the middle of a woods on a stump, bawling my eyes out, trying to figure out how, why, what, all that sort of thing.
And still, here's a guy, again, alone in the woods, trying to figure something out on his own.
Yeah. Yep. No book, no breadcrumbs, no.
No parents.
Yep. And so, yeah. So it was a little tough. And of course, it's also hard to ask for help. I mean, as men in general,
We're stubborn.
Very stubborn. So,
Particularly an angry man.
Yeah. And I'm, been on my own, doing my own thing for a while. I did everything else myself. So all this stuff is basically coming back to haunt me or kick me in the tail or whatnot,
You find yourself reliving some of these things?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So, I mean, but it was tough. The one big thing, our one neighbor, the father of the fellow who gave me the Bible, I went to talk to them, because they have known my wife for a long, long time. Pretty much her whole life, they had known her. So I went to talk to them, explain to them what was going on and that sort of thing. And he had given me a pamphlet, kind of like,
Mm-hmm.
read this. There's a pamphlet on marriage. It had a bunch of Bible verses in it, and it, would kind of talk about them, and try to coach you through marriage. So, I took it out into the woods.
Is it the same stump day or a different day?
Different day.
Okay.
Yeah. This
Same
is
stump?
probably a couple weeks, 3 weeks later. No, different stump,
Got
a little different view.
Mm-hmm.
And read through it and trying to, I'd read a little bit and, and then I'd want to argue, why do I got to do that? Or what, and then I would go off and it would be the kind of the mental gymnastics, the wrestling with God again, is this going to work? I can't have, all the horse trading again,
Yeah.
It's like, please give me a shot.
Can I ask you, though, was this just a snake oil thing? If I take some of this, maybe this will get better? Or was God actually real to you?
I mean, at really at this point in time, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I really didn't know. I mean, I felt, I was angry, and I felt like, that's not a real nice way to treat somebody if this, you know what I mean? That kind of horse trading and blame and all that sort of thing. And, but it was basically through this process, eventually I was able to work back into the house, be with the kids, and, it was a slow process. And the more I read, the more it was kind of a combination of the both. The more I read, the better I would be. It took a long time, but I started having more peace. Whether that's from the reading, realizing what I could lose, the combination of everything.
Yeah. Did your wife at any point in time say, until you figure this out, we need some distance between us?
Yes.
So
that's what, yeah.
That's
basically what, yeah. So
she went somewhere and you went somewhere.
The kids were there, so I left.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Who'd you hang out with?
People would work.
Yeah.
I mean, wasn't a whole lot of places to go.
And how long?
A couple of weeks. I mean, it wasn't. It wasn't that long. But it was long enough. Okay, you can come over for dinner tonight. Get something decent to eat. You can come by and do the laundry.
And how were your kids?
Oh, young. I mean, Cody, the oldest, was probably maybe 8. So the youngest was baby. I mean,
was he wanting to know what was going on?
Not that he ever expressed to me. He may have asked my wife. But I worked a lot at that time. So
you being gone
wasn't
okay.
A shocker to him or whatnot, but not being there at night to a point, and the other ones were young enough not to notice too much, luckily. So we were able to patch things up at that point. I mean, it was a slow process. I was bound and determined. I mean, that was my rock bottom. I mean, I was not able to lose that. I mean, I had built a family of my own. I mean, I had lost all my family, except for my sister. And I had built a family, and I just couldn't lose it. I mean, I couldn't let it go. I mean, I didn't have a backup plan. I didn't have, an exit strategy or, a girlfriend or I mean, it was our story it was a perfect story for me. I mean, it's not an ideal journey, but it was a perfect story of us being together, our family, what we had built. And everything came unraveled at that point when I just, and the only way, I mean, was really God's help. I mean, literally almost every day. I mean, things got better over time, but almost every day I had to ask God to help me do something.
Yeah.
I mean, if they spill the milk, don't let me get mad, or if whatever, if I'm working on the dishwasher or something and I cut myself, don't throw something across it was just, I mean, it was a constant. And the crazy thing was that it actually worked. I mean, that's the thing that, you know, the more I asked for help, the more help I got. I mean, and, you know, I'm a little slow on the uptake, but eventually I started piecing a couple things together and figuring, you know, between some of the reading and, you know, I mean, at this point I'm, you know, in my 30s. I've been around long enough to, you know some stuff and seen some things and realized that I had been given a gift, a second chance, a do-over, you know, fill in what you want. And, you know, I really tried to make the most of it. I mean, again, that first year or two after that point was laborious. I mean, it was, you know, I mean, it was, I mean, I was excited to do it, well, you know, thankful and all that kind of thing, but it was a lot of work. And it was a lot of, you know, and eventually it got to the point where what did help me too is my wife opening up about how I made her feel, how my anger made her feel, how what, you know, scaring the kids, that sort of thing did to her, them, what have you. And started piecing things together that, you know, letting some things go, embracing other things, and really trying to, really starting to finally heal or whatnot. You know, let go of the past, embrace the future, that sort of thing. And it was a little difficult.
Let me ask you this, Kurt. Here's the Hopkins bound engineer, the guy who goes out in the field and he fixes things, he makes things, he creates things. And yet you get to this point to where you may lose again this thing that you've built, this family. And that terrorizes you, doesn't it?
Yes. I mean, I was scared to death. I was broken. I mean, it was worse. It was worse than my parents passing away because it was my fault. You know, I had no control over cancer. I had no control over that silly traffic accident. I had control of this. I did it. I mean, takes two to tango, but it was all me. I mean, you know.
But why does the guy, the engineer, now seek something bigger than himself to help him fix it or fix it for him?
Well, because I couldn't do it myself. I mean, that's you know, it took, I had relied, you know, you're a teenager or whatnot, you do what teenagers do. But, you know, when my parents passed, I did everything. I mean, I took care of my sister, sort of. You know, I paid the bills for the house. I took care of I took care of the cars. I got her squared away here. You know, we built the business. We, you know, all this sort of thing. I did it, you know. I mean, it was, the neat thing was, you know, I helped a lot of people along the way. You know, I mean, I remember a guy came in and he was all worried. We were eating lunch and he was worried about putting these skylights in. His wife really wanted these skylights, you know, and he's like, man, I got a perfectly good roof and I am scared to death to cut into it. And I was like, really? Finished eating, went over there, cut the roof out, cut the drywall out, cut the insulation out, framed it up, put new drywall in, done at dinner time. I mean, so I kind of, liked doing that, helping people, all that sort of thing.
So you, in a day, cut open somebody's roof, you put the skylight in, by which I would be thinking the same way that guy did. Don't cut in my perfectly good roof, because you hear all these leak stories. But you did it. No big deal. But you couldn't fix your family.
Correct. And terrified, I mean, despondent. I mean, my whole ball of wax came unraveling, melting, what have you. I just, that was my rock bottom. And without I was so lucky to have the people, I talk about all the stuff that I did myself.
Mm-hmm.
And, now with the ability of hindsight, I am so very lucky of all the people that were in my life that helped me. I mean, I cursed God for several times at different times in my life, different points, and looking back, he had done so much for me. I mean, it's just amazing. I mean, from, the neighbor handing me a pamphlet and helping me out to, just, being over to stop by and have a home cooked meal when I hadn't had anything but fast food in 3 weeks or whatnot. It's amazing. I mean, I am so fortunate. I am so absolutely fortunate. And the only way that happened is through God's grace. I mean, like I said, I felt like I was abandoned, and instead he is there. He was there all the time. I mean, he was literally helping. I mean, it's amazing the people that he put in my life, the times that he put them there, and the things that they did for me. I mean, I have, and that's the one dilemma that I have now is, one, I feel fortunate that I've actually recognized it and haven't gone through my entire life with blinders like an idiot and being oblivious. But I have had a blessed and charmed life. I mean, you cover it with, his parents died. Yeah, it's not a great part, but I mean, I literally have been so blessed and so lucky in so many aspects of my life, even to this day, that now I have a very, very difficult time trying to figure out why. I am left with, God has done so much for me. Why am I worthy, and what do I need to do to be worthy of what he's done for me? So the good news is my eyes are somewhat open. The bad news is I don't have a whole lot of answers to that question.
Yeah.
But I'm lucky I have an opportunity.
Yeah. When did, for you, God become more than a rabbit's foot? When did he become personal?
When he repaired my marriage.
Hmm.
I mean, when I when I stopped maybe not at that exact point, but in the process of me not being scared to death every night that tomorrow might be the last night. She's not going to let me stay. She's going to get out. She's going to find somebody else. This is too much trouble. Probably for a good year, I lived like that and deserved to live like that.
Mm.
But it was not a great feeling.
Yeah. And then what point did you feel like that your faith in God, who now you had turned to maybe as a last resort and a desperation that you've passed this milestone in your marriage to where it's safe, I'm good, but still I need to recognize a few things, or lots of things.
That's really where, so it was that day-to-day struggle where, it wasn't straight up, but, it was a little up and down, but there was progress. That's when it became personal for me. That's when I knew God was actually working for me or helping me,
Mm-hmm.
However you want to call it. But I knew it was working for me. I knew that praying, that reading, trying to learn, trying to get better, trying to be a better person, all that was connected. And the more work I did, the better things would be.
But at some point, it became more than just checking off the boxes, right?
Yes, it wasn't really a matter of checking off it was just, it was an overwhelming, about the same, let's see, as we healed our marriage, during that process, all this started to come slowly, little pieces coming up. During that process, I was able to kind of put to bed I guess, not necessarily the anger issues, but maybe some of the unresolved stuff with my parents passing. And I was able to see what, I went from the why me to the how lucky am I? And that was all through, prayer, actually, all that. It's hard for me to put into words.
No, you're doing great.
To
But
the Spirit of Christ altering your nature.
Yeah. It was definitely that the Holy Spirit at work, or however, and it was, at the time, I remember thinking, vanity, I'm thinking, I was thinking, wow, how neat it is that God put these people in my life, which was good. It was a step, but that how not only was he changing me from the inside, changing my heart, unburdening me with certain things, but my wife as well and my family as well. So.
Is that because of what they were seeing in you? How you were changing?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah.
That's, and our interactions and,
When did your wife see this moment when she saw this husband begin to change? And this wasn't a joke anymore. He's just not checking the box off, but something about him's different.
I don't know.
Yeah.
That's That's a good question. And I don't know if there was one specific time. There's always, you always see on the commercials where the dad gets hit someplace that's not supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was, we were talking about the dishwasher. There was a time that I was working under the sink to get to the dishwasher. So spread leg on the kitchen floor up under the sink and bam, and it wasn't pleasant. And my wife's right there in the kitchen, and, I like to think it's divine intervention or what have you, but nothing came out of my mouth. It maybe was the amount of pain that I was in or what have you. But, that was one of those times where, kind of she bends down, looks under the kitchen and or under the sink, and who is that underneath there?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a couple things like that, where a tirade didn't come out or a tool went across the room or that sort of thing. And it was more, I believe it was more cumulative than it was a specific moment.
But there was a time where your wife was fearful of your reactions.
Yes.
And now we're still men and we still respond in certain ways, but you believe it's come to this place where she can trust your reaction.
Yes. Yep. And it took a long time to get there,
Yeah.
like you said, and it was step by step. But, yeah, it was definitely a process. But yeah, it took a lot of time and a lot of trust on her part.
And where do you see things going from this point forward, just in your marriage and your relationship with the Lord?
Yeah, like I mentioned a little earlier, I'm searching. That's kind of what brought me to you guys, a little bit. I'm trying to learn more. I was very, very lucky. I mean, I am very lucky. I've been very lucky. What the Lord has put into my life, and I'm trying to figure out how I could possibly be worthy of that. I mean, and there may not be an answer to that, but I mean, I feel like the more I learn, I don't know, there is just the more I learn, the more I want to know, and the desire I have to, and maybe it is to know God or to know about God or what. There's something that I don't know what it is.
Mm-hmm.
There's something out there I'm looking for. I'm trying to find it, and I'm trying to. The more I learn, the more questions I seem to have, but I feel like I'm on the right path.
Great. So this God that you one day in the woods had this stump experience with, that you may at some point in time been extraordinarily angry with because he took your parents. Now you come back to him and say, I'm desperate. I don't even know if you're real, but I need you because I can't do it anymore. Is this what we're hearing?
That's exactly what you're hearing. I mean, I was at the end of my rope, fill in the blank with whatever euphemism or whatnot you want to put in there. But again, I physically, emotionally couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I mean, Yeah. I could not, I mean, I do not know how I physically, emotionally would have been able to do it if I was the cause of my family to fall apart. I mean, I guess technically you do what you got to do type of thing, maybe, but I was at a mental place where I couldn't, that could not happen.
At wit's end.
Yes, I could not let that happen. And the only help I had was God.
So this guy now who reaches out to God, who is still very much on a journey of searching him out, but does know that at some point in time he did come to your rescue.
Yes. I mean, that's the only way that my marriage got better.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the only way I got better. I mean, that was the problem.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
so how does your wife look at you now and her marriage, and is faith something, this faith in God of the Bible, real to your entire family?
yes, to a point.
To a point, yeah.
I have I got 2 sons that are in their 20s.
Mm-hmm.
So both had been active in the church at times, and they're in their 20s, and there's distractions. I think they know of God, but that's that's a process as well. It's conversations that we've had, but not, until they start asking questions at this point, there's not a whole lot I can tell them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're making their own way and their own decisions and that sort of thing. The younger two, again, my daughter's getting into that age too. She's in college. She's making her own way as well. The youngest one, hard to say.
Yeah.
I mean, he's, again, they've seen what's happened for me and are aware of it. I don't know if they understand it. I'm not sure I understand it, and then, even if they ask me, I'm not sure I had to have a good answer for them.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully they do. And hopefully I will when they do. But yeah, so I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah,
or
it
not,
does.
But
and let me ask you this. Here's the thing about stories, that somewhere in those stories, everybody to some degree finds their place in one of them, like your story. And there's folks out there who have had similar experiences where tragedy strikes early in their family. They have this journey of aloneness, if you will. What do you say to them who has tasted what you have tasted? What do you tell them?
it's it's tough. I mean, and it's that answer depends on time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's hard to, you have the stages of grief. So I mean, there's a time period when you can't tell them anything. I mean, but if you got to a point where you could have a conversation without offending or whatnot, the one thing is, to look at, and this is a tough conversation, is to look at the good things in your life and how you got there. It's almost like a survival skill. You drop down in a plane crash and all seems lost, and you take inventory of what do you got. I got a stick of chewing gum and a pen or whatever. You do inventory of what you have, and you have to be thankful and build off of what you have, even if it's not much. Even if you feel like you have nothing, God will give you the resources if you ask. I mean, and if you're not getting what you ask for, you may not be looking in the right place or asking for the right thing.
Wow.
But help is there. It's just you got to be willing to see it. You got to be willing to look for it.
So the engineer sitting on a stump assesses what he has in his backpack, and he realizes this isn't enough to make this work or get me through this. So at some point in time, I gotta ask someone bigger than myself to get me through this. And you did.
Yep. And it worked.
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't work at a drop of a hat. I didn't walk back down that hill and, there was confetti and cake and stuff when I got there. It was a pamphlet from the neighbor. It was, a commercial that I saw on TV that maybe that's a nice thing to say, all those little tidbits or whatnot didn't happen by accident, and the help is there. You just got to be able to see it. You got to be willing to ask for it. And you got to be able to, accept it. Again, it might not be exactly what you're asking for, the way you think it's going to happen or what have you, but you have to open your heart and make the most of what you got. I mean.
So would you say a critical juncture is you have to maybe swallow your anger or deal with it? You grab onto a little humility and just ask.
Yes. I mean, anger's going to get you nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, that keeps, that gives you no chance.
But it's a legitimate response to the pain that you've had.
It is. But at some point in time, it's going to eat you up. And that's what it was doing to me. It eventually, again, I was able to mask it, hide it, conceal it where it wasn't as objectionable. I mean, if I had taken a job in a cubicle somewhere, it probably would have shown up pretty quick.
Yeah.
But the fact that I was in construction is able to fester and carry on and think that's fine.
Yeah.
But at some point in time, you have to be able to ask for help and to actually be able to see the help. You got to have faith, and you do have to have enough humility or probably faith is the biggest thing that, this is what I need, or this is something I should do, or this is a way I should look, or what have you, depending on the circumstances or whatnot. But, yeah, you have to, God will help you. You just have to be able to see what he's trying to do for you.
Do you see yourself as a man who will continue this journey of searching the rest of your life, and perhaps even that with your family?
Yes. Yep. I feel, I mean, now that I've, again, the benefit of hindsight, I truly have been blessed. And I mean, and in such a tremendous way that I don't feel like I'm worthy of that. I mean, I've been given such gifts with the people that have been placed in my life and the things that have happened to me that I feel like I have a duty to find out why. I mean, or what I need to do to be worthy of that.
Mm.
So, yeah, I mean, it's the intellectual curiosity. It's the yearning of the heart. It's thankfulness for what's been placed in my life. Combination of all the above.
Yeah. Kurt, I've really enjoyed your story, and I think both Luke and I have, and the listeners of Restless, the podcast. And is there a final word to folks listening? If there were one or two things you would say, and I think you've already have said it extraordinarily well, but what's that last thought?
It's so simple. I mean, you see it on postcards and different things, have faith, and that's real easy to spit out there. But it's a nice catchphrase, makes for a nice T-shirt, but you really do have to have faith. I mean, and again, part of having faith is to be aware and to know where to look, or to be able to take things, again, God will help you. It may not look like what you want it to look like, and that's our vanity, not being humble, what have you. But God will give you help. You just have to be willing to accept the help that He gives you and do the best you can with it. So,
Kurt, we want to thank you for joining Restless, the podcast tonight. Luke, I'm not sure what you're thinking and hearing this story, what comes across your mind, or any question that you might have for Kurt, but it's been a very good and hopeful story that you have shared with us tonight, and we want to thank you for that.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate the opportunity.
Of course. And Kurt, what I pretty much gather from some of your final words there is just, no one can be helped that doesn't want to be helped. But when someone is finally willing to seek that, they need only ask and might be well surprised at just what kind of help arrives.
That's exactly true.
Very good. Well,
Yes,
thanks
sir.
for being here, Kurt.
Thank you, Luke.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to Episode 7 of Restless the Podcast featuring Kurt. For we here are restless to find Him who said, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." For whom is your heart restless? And for today, who, like a skilled engineer, can rework your life?